All right. So what we're gonna try to make today is some pizza dough. Also, I'm gonna use some of this to make some focaccia bread because the full recipe for the pizza dough is actually four sections, but I'm gonna split it up to two. I'm gonna have two parts pizza dough, and then the other half I'm gonna make a focaccia bread out of it. All right. Some of this stuff that you may not need, but I use it just to help me out. But you're gonna need a bowl, spatula. We are gonna weigh our stuff, so a food scale. I'm using a thermometer because we need to have our water at a certain temperature. Remember, the yeast that we're using needs to be active and growing, and if your water is too cold or it's too hot, it's not going to work out. So ideally, you want the water temperature between 80 to 100 F. I've had it work at 75 and I've had it work at 105, 110, but roughly anywhere between 90 and 100 or 80 and 100 works out pretty fine. So I'm just going to measure our water. So we're at like 93 right now. It's perfect fine. And also now the yeast. This is going to be a little bit different if you're going to use active yeast, or in my instance, I'm using instant yeast. So when I use instant yeast, I'm going to just mix everything together. But if you're using active yeast, you're actually going to have your sugar and your yeast and your water set together and have the active yeast start to grow, and then you can start putting your flour in. But since in our instance, I have instant yeast, so that means it's all you can actually put everything together and mix it up. Okay, so right now I'm gonna get my food scale ready. Put in my bowl. All right, make sure your food scale's at zero, right? So we're at zero. For the recipe, I'm gonna go ahead and use 375 grams of water, 10 grams of salt, 5 grams of sugar, and then I'm gonna put 5 grams of active yeast in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my water in first. Close enough. 378. That's all right. So about 5 grams. All right. Put 10 grams of salt. All right. And then I'm going to use 5 grams of sugar. All right. And we'll just mix it up. Stir this up just so kind of have the salt and sugar kind of mix into the water real well, so it's not just granular. Then I'm going to zero this out. So you can use one or the other, but I like to use both. So you can use all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour, or if you want to use 00 flour, that's up to you. I'm going to use a mix of bread flour and also all-purpose flour. So I'm going to put in about 300 grams of bread flour. All right. And I'm going to use 300 grams of all-purpose. All right. And then we just mix it. And this is just a rough mix. I'm not going to put in a mixer or anything. Just going to kind of hand mix it together. And I'm going to use this little water spritzer. You don't have to use this. It's just something that's I find useful for myself when I'm making bread. But I'm just gonna spritz the sides of my bowl so that way I'm getting all of the flour and there's nothing kind of settling and not being used up. You can mix this by hand if you want. I just like using this little spatula, or if you want to have an actual mixer to mix this, that's fine too. But it's going to be this shaggy mess. You're just going to let it settle for about an hour, and then we're going to do our actual mix. I'm just spritzing the side. Again, just trying to get all the flour off the walls and on the bottom of the bowl. And if you watched my videos before, I do have a sourdough starter. There's a sourdough recipe that you can use for this as well. I'm just going to let this sit there, let all the flour absorb all the water, and I'm going to cover this up. So you can cover this up with a damp cloth, or just have it covered with some saran wrap, something like that. I actually use like a hairnet or a hair cap. Shower cap. And then I just let it sit. All right, so it's been about an hour. We let this kind of rest so the flour can absorb the water. So right now we're going to do what I call like a slap and fold method. There's many methods that you can do with this, but basically we're just kind of semi-kneading the dough to make a nice ball, okay? And just take this off. I'm just going to spritz my hands to get it kind of wet. Fix this, and then I'm just going to start kind of molding my dough. So all we're trying to do is build a little skin. If it starts to get a little sticky, just wet your hands a little bit. And since we are making pizza dough, you can actually use olive oil too if you want. But I prefer just using water. There you go, making a nice little dough, a little dough ball. Again, if it starts to get a little sticky, just add a little bit more water. All right, now we're just going to cover it back up and let it rest for a little bit. With depending on the yeast, it may take about 30 minutes. Also, the temperature of your house or room. If it's around 75 degrees or so, it should take about 30 minutes to an hour for it to actually rise up, and it should almost double up, and we'll come back to that. All right, so it's been about 45 minutes, and as you can tell, the dough has doubled up. So now we're gonna do what we call stretch and fold. So I'm gonna just grab a little bit with some wet hands, pull, stretch it out, and then I'm gonna tuck it into itself. I'm gonna do this about 4 times. I'm just trying to make it into a nice bally. Again, trying to make the skin nice and taut. We're just gonna do this a few more times. And again, make it like a little ball. And that's it. I'm gonna mist it, and then I'm gonna cover it back up. And we're gonna repeat this process about 3 to 4 times. All right, so right now we're gonna go ahead and separate our dough. So I'm gonna make 2 pizza doughs and a focaccia. So we're gonna generously just oil up our containers. And I'm going to oil up this loaf a little bit. I'll use this to cut, so I'm just going to keep it nice and oiled. I'll go ahead and oil my hands as well. And we're going to pull this dough out. Keep in mind that we've already done the stretch and fold about 3 times already. So a few hours have already gone past, and now we're to this part. Okay, go ahead and flip it over. So right now is the time I'm going to kind of open it up a little bit, and then I'm going to divide it. Right, so I do want to split this in half. And this is going to be my focaccia. And these two I'm going to divide in half again. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it into my containers. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch and fold this, kind of make it into like a little bally. And so we're going to make a little ball out of this. You can use this in about an hour if you want to let it rise in room temp, or you can put it in your fridge and it'll last up to 3 days. And we'll just cover that up. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and make it into my focaccia. I'm going to have it kind of just spread out here using my fingers. And I'm going to cover it up and let it rest and kind of have it expand and open up again, and we'll come back to that. So it's been about an hour or so. I'm going to go ahead and spread it more, but we're going to add a lot of oil. We're going to be very generous with this. So just spreading a lot of olive oil. And at this point, if you want to add anything, it's optional, but you don't have to. But I'm going to add some garlic and some olives and just kind of mix it in there. I got a little bit of mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to throw in here as well. And again, I'm just going to press it in, and then we're going to let it rest a little bit more and have it kind of fill up this entire pan if we can. We want all these big old air bubbles. That's what we want. And I'm just pressing these guys in so they can kind of stay there. And I'm gonna cover it up, and I'm gonna let it rest a little bit, and then we're gonna throw it in the oven. All right, so we got it rested for about 45 minutes now. I'm gonna drizzle some more olive oil on here. I got my oven preheated at 400 F, and we're gonna let it bake until it's about golden brown.